My Audi S3 has a big problem. The steering doesn't work. And that sucks because without the steering, I can't drive it to the body shop and get all these lovely new parts painted. See, there's a lot of light still on the dashboard, but we've come a long way since I got this car and I'm not going to let that stop me now. So hopefully I can find the problem, fix it, and take this car on its first drive, which is going to be straight to the body shop. Now to do that, I'm going to pull out the most expensive and high-tech tool that I own. So I've got a string line and a ruler, and I'm going to try some driveway wheel alignment. These cars are full of sensors, so if there's anything that's bent or broken, it may be stopping my steering from working properly. I'm not actually going to try and align anything here, I just want to check that the wheels are all roughly pointing in the same direction. Firstly, I measured from the centre of each wheel and made sure the string was parallel to the car. Then, I compared the measurements from the front and back of each wheel. If they were similar, then we know the wheels are sitting straight. If they're not, then there's something wrong. String alignment is commonly used on race cars, although there's usually a bit more equipment involved than 2 axle stands and a driveway. But unfortunately, after all that, everything seemed to be okay, which means we haven't found the problem. So it's time for the car to go back up on jacks for the 100th time and have another check over the suspension and arms to see if there was any damage that we missed. And once I got my head back under there, I had some questions. That's supposed to be bent? I'm not sure. Is that supposed to be bent? That's So off came the other side, and I can confirm they were all supposed to be bent. Then that's definitely not the problem. So it was back to the drawing board. Frustrated to say the least. After months of this car sitting on the driveway, we were so close to finally being able to drive it. It was time to get the laptop out. The problem with running diagnostics is that whatever the fault is causing about 10 different codes to pop up. Related to steering, ABS, traction control, tyre pressure, which doesn't really help me pinpoint the actual problem. My next option was trying to reset the steering angle sensor. Something could have knocked this out of whack during the crash. After a lot of very helpful YouTube videos, I found out you can do this by turning the steering full lock left and then full lock right, which was a bit trickier than normal without any power steering. But still, no luck. And if you appreciate all of the effort that I'm putting into this, it would really mean a lot if you could hit that subscribe button. So it was another late night, working on with no real progress, until... So for my very limited diagnostic skills, red light on dash means the steering rack is bad. So we've got to get the under tray off, we've got to get the tie rods out, and then drop the subframe down to get to the rack, which is just there. Yay. Right, this is turning into a pretty big job now, but we'll persevere. The first step was to let some rusty bolts soak in a bit of lubricant to make them easier to remove later. Then I moved on to the bolt holding the steering column to the steering rack. It's an easy one to miss, and it could have caused me a lot of pain later, so I made sure to do it now. Next, I removed the bolts from the under tray, and out fell a little surprise, the brake reservoir cap that I had dropped into the engine bay a couple of weeks ago. That's another problem crossed off the list. Then I moved on to some questionable spanner work to remove the tie rods. Even all that lube and wire brushing didn't make them any easier to get out. After that, it was back under the car to remove the subframe bolts. With the brackets out the way, I got a jack under the subframe to support it while I removed the last bolts. This would have been a lot easier with a ramp, but I don't think the neighbours will appreciate me installing one on the driveway. Hopefully I can drop this down just enough to be able to slide the steering rack out of the back. Before that though, I need to remove this heat shield that was covering the wiring loom and connect us into the rack. Easier said than done. Once that was out of the way, I unclipped the connectors and unwrapped the wiring harness. Then it was time for some brute force and a lot of wiggling, until finally, it was free. One steering rack. Now, there's no obvious signs of damage to this, none that I can see anyway. So my guess is that the crash pushed this in a little bit, pushed down here and damaged the sensor that sits in here that talks to the steering angle sensor. Instead of risking it and trying to swap the sensor in here and it not working, I'm just going to get an entirely new second-hand shaft and swap it out. Okay, so we're onto something here. I can feel it. Before fitting the new rack, I needed to swap some of the old parts out, like the tie rods and boots. I made sure to count the threads left on the tie rods. These are how your alignment would be adjusted at an actual garage and not on my driveway with a bit of string. I nipped up the new clips and the boots covering the joints and then fitted the heat shield, all ready to be fitted back onto the car. This thing was pretty heavy to lift in with one hand, but after a couple of painful looking faces, I finally had it seated. Sin! That was way easier than I thought it was going to be. Like, way easier. Right. Then it was onto the wiring, which it turns out I was a bit premature with the heat shield, so that came back off. Once that was sorted, I jacked the subframe back into position, while at the same time trying to guide the steering rack back in line with the column inside the car. Easier said than done. That took me about an hour, but I've condensed it down to about 4 seconds for your viewing pleasure. With that done, it was time to ugga-dugga some bolts back into the chassis. Reattach the engine mounts and brackets. And then refit the tie rods and lower arms to the hubs. Only a few more bolts left to put in and we'll finally get to see if we can drive this thing on the road. I have changed absolutely everything that I can find damaged on this car now. We've got new sensors, bumper, headlight, wing, steering rack. And now it's time to see if all our hard work has paid off and got rid of the Christmas tree dashboard. Oh, we've got one. And I think I know how to fix that. Turning the wheel left and right should. It's gone. Look at that. No more lights. Well, we've got a washer water light, which I can live with, and the parking handbrake's on, so that's it. That's it. We're ready for a drive. long time of rebuilding this thing, it's finally back on the road. Brakes work, steering works. It's a little bit off to the right, but you know, we've had the subframe and steering rack out, so I'll take that. Surely that's got to be worth a like and subscribe.